So I'm just going to share with you my screen. So the purpose of this session aims to showcase innovative approaches to addressing environmental challenges, as well as to highlight other pioneering initiatives while reflecting on how they can serve faith communities. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that without innovation, there's no way we can overcome the challenges of our time. What is important is innovation that works for all and not just for a few. We must promote the development of partnerships across a range of actors to increase collective knowledge, test ideas, and expand dialogue. And this is exactly what today's session will bring: innovation and partnership beyond borders. So it's all very exciting. The people who are going to be presenting the works, the keynote speakers of this session, is Brennan van Dijk, who is currently the chief of the Capacity Development and Innovation branch of the UN Environment Science Division. Prior to assuming these responsibilities, she served as the executive coordinator of the Strategic Donor Partnerships and Global Fund section in the UN Environment. And then we have Runa Ray, who has worked extensively with the Sustainable Development Goals and climate action at the United Nations. And as an innovator, Runa Ray's designs encompass the reduce, reuse, and recycle model. After that, we have Peter Nietzsche, who is representing Plastic Banks, who builds recycling ecosystems in underdeveloped communities in an effort to fight both plastic pollution in oceans as well as high poverty levels in developing countries. And after that, we have Petra Wadström, who is the inventor and founder of Solvatten, whose mission is to provide people living in developing countries with safe and hot water in a portable, environmentally friendly way. And after Petra, we have Mary Githiomi, representing IAS Kenya, whose mission is to seek to empower communities through promotion of access to education, sustainable livelihood, environmental stewardship, and human rights. She will be followed by Susanne Deering and Ariane Neely, representing Terra Vita, whose mission is to make the world greener by turning desert and depleted soils into fertile soils. This allows trees, plants, and crops to grow everywhere and give everyone access to highly nutritious food. And last but not least, we have Katie Washberger, representing Dana, which is a venture builder and investment platform that supports women-led startups in desert tech, including sectors of agri-tech, water solutions, food security, water management, and renewable energy through regional collaboration, innovation mentorship, impact community, and funding. So as you can see and hear, some very, very interesting topics that we will touch upon during this session. So what is going to happen is that all the keynote speakers will make their presentations and we'll end the session with a Q&A session. So if you have any questions all along the way, you can either write them in the chat box or you can raise your hand at the end of the keynote speakers session and ask your question live. At the end of the session, we will also share how to contact each presenter in case you didn't get an answer to your question or you wish to follow up later on with a partnership or something like that. So I'm trying to stop sharing my screen now. Let's see if I can manage doing that. Yes, okay. So with that said, I would like to hand over to the first keynote speaker, Brennan van Dijk. The floor is yours. And your microphone is off. Sorry.
My apologies. Thank you so much, Erica, and thank you everyone for joining this virtual event. The strong interest across faith-based communities to protect nature is going to be critical to our success in overcoming the current very real and sadly rather imminent threats to the natural world in which we live and on which we depend utterly. The concept that nature is an act of divinity is actually common to essentially all religions. So, unlike any other actors, faith-based organizations can function as leaders from the spiritual and moral perspective and inspire us to build green and circular economies that will flourish into the future. So, your interest in environmental innovation is most welcome, therefore. Rapidly promoting and scaling up innovations is going to be vital to protecting the planet for the sake of our young people and future generations. We're racing toward irreversible damage to the planet. So environmental and faith-based communities together need to step up the game, and in large part by redirecting private sector flows towards sustainable products, services, and enterprises. In this hour and a half, we're going to hear about a number of terrific innovative solutions to environmental challenges, and happily there are many others. But there's so much more to the success of an innovation than just the brilliance of the innovation itself. And how can faith-based institutions support widespread market uptake of environmental innovation? Well, critically, we need to pay attention to something that's often referred to as the innovation valley of death, a stage of innovation where support often dries up because an innovation has moved past the phase of fundamental research, thereby reducing the level of public funding, but where uncertainty about the market potential of the innovation remains high enough that the private sector is still not willing to invest heavily. Once a new technology or solution has been established and a product business model has been shown to work, private companies are naturally willing to invest heavily to scale this up to wide commercial adoption. But the trick is to support an innovation whose value has been demonstrated, but that has yet to achieve widespread commercial adoption. The development of an innovation starts with fundamental research and then a demonstration, a proof of concept, but then the process moves into what we refer to as this valley of death, as the innovation faces these early adoption and scaling up stages until such time it is scaled sufficiently for market uptake to proceed on its own steam. The challenges to innovation very often prove fatal. And a key challenge is that at these early adoption and scaling up stages, you have to convince risk-taking consumers to test and accept a new product or service, but only a tiny proportion of the market is willing ultimately to try new products and innovations. And this fraction usually doesn't provide a large enough market for an innovation to take root and become profitable. Consequently, innovators often fail at this stage to raise sufficient investment, and the innovation dies. But even prior to this is the challenge of making people aware of the need for an innovation and aware of the existence of a particular innovation that they're supposed to be testing. Add to this the consideration that many innovators with promising, marketable solutions nevertheless lack the entrepreneurial skills, and it becomes clear why even terrific innovations often do not take off on the market. And there are challenges specific to green innovation. There's greater uncertainty about green market demand, more uncertain return on investment. And so these and the consequent lacks of funds are obstacles to a widespread uptake of green innovation. Additional challenges would include the high cost of technology infrastructure for scaling up, perhaps policy, institutional market barriers to entry like regulations, perverse subsidies, competition from established market actors, price wars. So many environmental solutions are perceived to have higher risk by the financing community. So even socially responsible investments tend to target only a few commercially proven solutions. So UNEP and faith-based organizations and other socially minded actors can actually do a lot to encourage investment in promising, innovative, environmentally and socially worthy products and services. The financial flows exist. We just need to work with socially minded, or at least willing, private sector partners to direct those flows along a sustainable path. According to the UN, the world needs 5 to 7 trillion a year in sustainable projects to meet our sustainable development goals. while the OECD estimates that total official development assistance has reached a peak at only about 142.6 billion, which is an order of magnitude smaller than the need. So UNCTAD has estimated the global financing gap for the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, is about 2.5 trillion. But it's actually not a lack of willing investors. In fact, 130 banks with 47 trillion in assets have committed to sustainability and climate action. It would take only about 5% of those 47 trillion to make up that financing gap. And there are investors willing to travel with innovators through this valley of death, but they need some additional fellow travelers able to complement what the market will provide. Investors need support in identifying the right investments, and they need to find ways as profit-making enterprises to allow them to support innovations through that critical early adoption scale-up phase. They need help in raising awareness around the availability of environmental innovations in which they want to invest. With the right financing models, sustainable products and services, and with them greener and more circular economies could take off. The Business and Sustainable Development Commission estimates that achieving the Sustainable Development Goals could open up $12 trillion of market opportunities and create 380 million new jobs by 2030. So opportunity exists there, interest exists there, but the multiple challenges to developing, identifying, and scaling up promising improving innovations has led to an over-reliance on old solutions. So how do we get more support behind environmentally promising innovations as they struggle through the early adoption and scaling up stages? Well, the good news is investors are recognizing that although the profit rate for environmental technologies can be slower than for dirtier alternatives, the investment return is greater in the long run and better for the earth. So they're increasingly focused on ideas that are not only profitable, but also good for the earth and for society. And they're committing to looking beyond simply maximizing profit and increasing shareholder value. But they need partnership with us as much as we need partnership with them to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. We can encourage the public sector to increase joint public-private sector investment in new environmental technologies, products, and services to reduce the risk to investors and allow them then to fill that financing gap at the early adoption and scaling up stage. The public sector alone doesn't have enough resources to ensure sustainable economic development globally. Development assistance from developed nations can only fill a fraction of that financing gap, as I've explained. But public financing can pay down some of the risks associated with that valley of death and can address public policies and regulations that raise unnecessary and sometimes unfair market barriers to the uptake of innovation. So we can let our we can let our elected leaders know that we support the public assumption of some of the risks of bringing promising innovations to scale. We can let them know that we expect public policies to be developed that encourage environmental innovation and the reduction of public policies that discourage environmental innovation or support environmentally problematic goods and services. We can use proven methods to identify environmentally and socially beneficial technologies, products, and services, and then raise awareness of their existence through our faith-based communities. And we can encourage peoples of faith to be the risk-taking consumers willing to test and accept new products and services. UNEP has a new innovation facility that's developing a rigorous approach to innovation scanning and a network of partner institutions to take on the challenge of identifying promising innovations at the early adoption stage. So faith-based organizations should consider joining this network or encourage others to join it. Faith-based organizations can also encourage business and industry leaders of faith to adopt or maintain a broad, socially responsible understanding of the purpose of economic enterprise. Since 1997, the principles of corporate governance of the U.S. Business Roundtable asserted that corporations exist to serve shareholders, to maximize shareholder value. But in 2019, they adopted a new standard for corporate responsibility that holds that the common corporate purpose is to deliver value to all stakeholders, customers, suppliers, employees, communities, and shareholders. This is thinking and acting from an ethical imperative. And this is what faith-based organizations can ask of the world and of business leaders. So I'd just like to close by saying it is really a privilege to stand side by side with faith-based organizations, collaborating with innovators and entrepreneurs and established business leaders, with civil society organizations and with private citizens, as we together seek to protect this divine place that we call home for our children and for all of God's creations into the future. There's so much that we can do together, but we need to act urgently. So I'm really looking forward to hearing some of these wonderful ideas that colleagues have from across the world and to hear your responses, your questions. And I encourage you, if you're interested, to contact me. The contact information will be forthcoming to hear more about what UNIP is doing on promoting environmental innovation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brennan, for those encouraging words. So we will move forward and leave the floor to Runa Ray, who's going to explain to us what the connection is between fashion and climate action. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Erica, and thank you, Brennan. That was a fantastic speech. I would like to thank everybody here and the Faith for Earth community, the people present at this important dialogue between ecology and mankind, and Mr. Iyad for giving me the opportunity to speak at this wonderful event. I'm Runa Ray, a fashion environmentalist and a sustainable fashion designer who uses circularity in business and manufacturing practices. I also use fashion to bridge social and environmental concerns and address the challenges caused by man. I believe fashion needs to carry a message to educate the masses, and I will be talking about that. My topic of discussion is fashion activism and how faith-based organizations with fashion can help educate and advocate for policy change. Fashion, as we know, is one of the largest polluters of the environment. Water pollution because of the dyeing and textile industry, plastic pollution because of synthetic fabrics, landfills from fast fashion, and child labor that is rampant across the industry. The fashion industry has viewed nature solely as a for-profit and gain, and this has had serious consequences on society. Consumer-driven countries are called to curtail the consumption patterns and find alternative ways to extend the life of a garment, refrain from fast fashion, and even opt for only natural fibers. While we find various ways within the industry to combat these practices towards climate change, collaborations with faith-based organizations can go a long way in helping the world work together in unison for the betterment of the planet. After all our clothes are made by people of various faiths who toil and make beautiful what we wear with joy. Fashion has made us aware of our mindless practices because of our use and throw culture, which can have adverse effects on the environment, which is an abuse to God's creation. It is more important to love our neighbors and take care of our common home. During the initial days of discussion with Mr. Iyad, Asmira, and the Faith for Earth team, we brainstormed about how one garment could embody different faiths in dialogue with the environment. How that one garment could speak volumes without saying a word. A garment that spoke of earth given to us by God and how we needed to be in unison with climate, which was our common good. A garment that showed that everything is interconnected and environmental and social justice are inseparable. A garment that could create, which is the ethos of Faith for Earth, communicate, respect, empower, act, transform, inspire, organize, and network. So we joined hands with fashion to create a piece to insist every human being is an image of God, that we should not overlook the fact that each creature has its own purpose, and that the entire material of the universe speaks of God's love. And it is only when we work together with nature that we can become one with nature. The time has come to stop conquering, plundering, dividing, and differentiating, but to liberate, create, love, and heal our common home. And without further ado, I would like Azmaira to please share the small video. Thank you.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Let me know if you can hear it.
The music should come later. Thank you very much. So the garment was made on muslin, which is completely biodegradable, and it was hand painted, and we had the ethos of the Faith for Earth community, which was drawn into the piece. And this was a piece of activism where we try to speak and tell people how faith communities are working together for the environment. Thank you so much, Erica.
Wow, thank you so much. This was the message before the video was very powerful, and the video itself was very powerful as well. So thank you so much. We'll quickly move forward to the next speaker, which is Peter Nitschke from the Plastic Bank. You're welcome. And you're muted.
Now, can you hear me? Yes, hello.
Yes.
It's a great privilege to be here today at UNEA and to present to you. I have been presenting about the faith program at UNEA 3 years ago. That time the faith program of Plastic Bank was just an idea. We just have thought of reaching out to faith communities, and now 3 years later, we have a solid program, and I'm very grateful that I can report to you the progress that we have made so far, and I just want to present my screen with you. So I hope you can see my screen now. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Plastic Bank is focusing on the problem of ocean plastic, and every year 8 billion tons of plastic are going into the ocean, which is 1 garbage truck per minute, and it will double by 2030, and by 2050 there will be more fish in the ocean than plastic. So it's already irreversible damage that is happening to our ocean, because the plastic in the ocean cannot be removed anymore. It's very difficult because a lot of it sinks down and degrades into microplastic, and even in the fish that we eat. Like 80% of the fish in the Amazonas have already microplastic in them. So plastic is creating havoc in the environment because it should not be there. And this is getting a problem that's continuously increasing. However, plastic in itself is a resource that has value. And if you look how God created the universe and created life, life is moving in circles or in cycles, like everything is reused again. There is no waste in creation. And so as we humans go into economy, it should be circular, just as God created it. There should be no waste. And so plastic should never become waste. It should go back into the economy. And that is what Plastic Bank is working for, to make sure plastic goes back into economy and does not become waste. And so in that way, we stop ocean plastic before it becomes ocean plastic, and our goal is to create environmental, social, and economic impact through the circular economy that we are creating. So in that way, we work with the whole supply chain of plastic. We are a social enterprise, and we work in places where most plastic is mismanaged. There we create recycling ecosystems, working with mostly informal collector communities to collect as much plastic as possible so it does not go into the waterways. Through our blockchain alchemy, all the plastic that is recycled is being recorded. All our collectors have their own accounts, and through these accounts they can see how much plastic they have collected and what kind of rewards they can get. The plastic then is being processed back into feedstock, where companies can use it again to create new products. Those new products, so the companies that buy the plastic from us pay an extra price, they pay a premium price. So the plastic material is a kind of fair trade plastic, and that higher price goes back to stop poverty in the places where the collectors live by improving their lives. So we improve the life in different ways. This is through higher income for the collectors. It is also by improving cell phone services, providing school tuition, providing health insurances, cooking fuels, access to education. And so we are focusing on the sustainable development goals and using plastic recycling as a means to work towards achieving the SDGs. We are working in places where mostly plastic is going into the earth, into the ocean, like in the Philippines, which is and Indonesia, which are the second and third highest polluters of ocean plastic. We also work in Egypt, which is the highest polluter of ocean plastic for the Mediterranean. We work in Brazil, which is the 12th biggest plastic producer in the world. And now we're also starting in Cameroon and Thailand this year. So the innovation that we bring in is that our whole plastic supply chain is gamified through the blockchain, through digital means, where the collectors have their own app where they manage their collection, where they receive digital tokens that they can then use to unlock the rewards like health insurance. We work with the branches, which are mostly medium-sized enterprises, and then also with our partners, which are often international brands, which use the plastic back into their supply chain. Here are some examples of plastic that products that we are using that could, like Henkel, the nature shampoo bottle is produced out of our plastic. There is the core collection chairs that are made out of our plastic, and also carton back berry punnets also used from plastic in our supply chain. So far, we have collected about 40 million kilos of plastic, which is an equivalent of 2 billion bottles. But then we also work with people of faith. And what unites also every faith is that all people of faith are also using plastic. Everybody of us is using plastic. And all faith communities are teaching stewardship of the planet. And as all faith communities are in communities, in places, they already have a network where plastic can be collected and where people can be taught. And in that way, we are working with congregation to prevent ocean plastic and also redistribute wealth to the poor or disenfranchised in their communities. We are raising awareness in those communities with people of faith and help also faith congregations to reduce their plastic footprint. So what can faith communities do? They can set up collection points in their communities, mobilize the people to bring in their plastic, and also use income, basically because we buy the plastic from faith communities, which means that extra income can be used for social projects, which was often a good way also in these COVID times. We also have homilies and other training materials, flyers for faith communities to mobilize their people. There is an environmental impact and a social impact, so to speak, that faith communities can have by partnering with plastic banks, setting up collection points, and people in their communities can be mobilized for better waste management. So we are working now with faith communities in Indonesia, in the Philippines, and in Brazil. We are working with 56 parishes and school partners. Our faith partners have so far prevented 4.1 million bottles from entering the ocean. And as well, we have mobilized so far 150 parishioners to collect plastic. We are working with the Vatican, with the Dicastry for Human Development in the Laudato Si campaign. We also work with schools, and in that way, faith communities can be become part of the solution. So for faith communities in the countries where we work, we would be able to provide those kind of services. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter. Wow, I'm impressed so far. All the speakers are keeping their time, so thanks for that. Very interesting, your presentation. Now, another issue also connected to water is the next presenter, which is Petra Wadström, representing Solvatten. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I think I start directly with some slides to see the problem and the solution. So yes, Solvatten means sun and water in Swedish. And most of everyday challenge for the words poor can be linked to energy and water. And challenges with the contaminated water and from unprotected wells are not sustainable, or from contaminated rivers or lakes. Inte? Men jag har redan gått vidare. Okay. I think I come here. And så jag ska inte ta spela då. Okay. Sorry for this. But also piped water is not sustainable always. And as you said, Peter, the buying bottled water is not sustainable. But the most common way to treat water is to boil, and half the world cooks with wood. And there are many challenges among wood and collecting wood, and the risk to collect wood, and the land degradation that occurs when you collect a lot of wood, and the need is huge. As in Kenya, 6% of the land is forest, and 35 million tons is needed to cover the fuel wood every year. And the massive deficit in fuel wood supply has led to high rates of deforestation, adverse environmental effects such as desertification, land degradation, droughts, and famine, among others. 90% of the Kenyan rural areas use firewood or charcoal. And last year, or the last 2 years during the COVID-19, the restrictions, the use of biomass has increased due to the increased poverty. This map, it's an interesting map. It shows in blue where it's no access to electrical grid. For urban households in Kenya, research shows that 50 to 60% of the energy bill goes to heat water. Energy needs with the power peaks in the morning and the evenings, often resulting in big power cuts. And to reduce that problem, Kenyan government has decided that all new urban buildings should be equipped with solar water heaters. It's a good plan, and this will strengthen the resilience of the energy system. But how about the rest of the population living in rural settings? It's just 1%, I think, of the Kenyan rural household that are connected to the grid and living with no running safe nor hot water at home, but still have the same needs. Hot water is essential for daily life, from washing hands, preparing food, cleaning the dishes and showering. And staying healthy is a challenge. Girls helping mom with their siblings, staying out of school. And I asked myself, why is it like this? Who is doing something? And then I turned it to why not me? And that started my journey developing Solvatten with the focus to give women a tool. This is a picture where I'm in Nepal with one of my first mock-ups for research, and I listen and learn from the real problem owner, the Nepalese women, to listen before the product was ready. And I think that connection between the needs of the users and the big potential of innovations should meet those needs. To ask, to listen, and to use my experience and my imagination to understand the reality that triggered me to create a solution. To give a tool to women to create an independency and to use the power of the sun, I created Solvatten, which is a tool to treat and heat water that has today reached more than 90,000 families, nearly 500,000 people in 40 plus countries. This Solvatten, it's a portable container. It's filling up with dirty water and having an indicator telling when the water is safe. You put it in the sun for a couple of hours. It needs no batteries and it just needs sunlight, and the sun heats the water and treats the water with the help of the UV from the sun. It also can heat the water up to 75 degrees heat, and it's lasts for long, at least to childhood, so 7 to 10 years we have seen in the field. Well kept, we last, as I said, for a childhood. Meeting all the WHO guidelines, it's important to see that it treats both bacteria, viruses and parasites at the highest level as if it was boiled. So this is a short animated series how to use. Fill the container, push the indicator, let it be in the sun, and then the happy indicator turns a green happy face, and you can use it directly or use it as I can come to later, but preheated for cooking. Sorry, I messed up in the beginning. But yes, it's short introduction what it means with the access to safe hot water at home. So it's a multi-purpose tool. You can have tea directly. You can store it in the thermos. And as I said, you can speed up cooking. And of course, the health and improve hygiene. And the first babies, the first 1,000 days are so important. So we are focusing on mothers with babies and families. And we made this social return of investment study to see the impact as $1 invested, 26 in return. And the important part of our all is that we can finance Solvatten project through the carbon emission reduction. When you don't use the wood, you can save the carbon. So one Solvatten, you can save about 7 to 10 tons during its lifetime. And that we work with, and we work with to let the trees stand, to continue to grow. And we work with partnerships. So we work with EIS as long-standing partners since many years. And I'm happy to be here to present. But what I think, the journey continues, and I'm convinced that the work to change problems to positive solutions is of utmost importance for now and for the future. So thank you very much. Sorry, I mixed up in the beginning there, but important to give the word to Mary, who are implementing our project since many years. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Petra. And talking of partnership, we will hand straight over to Mary Githiomi, who is representing IIS Kenya, one of Solvatten's long-standing partners. Welcome, Mary.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I take this opportunity to thank even as we've been organizing together for this expo today, I really appreciate. And even for the ones that have gone before me, thank you very much, Petra, for giving the background of this. And now I bring voices from the field. I will share my screen. Confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, thank you. So I would like to say that I am grateful that we are able to present voices from the field, from faith and earth community. And my first slide here, you'll see that our mission is to seek to empower communities through promotion of access to education, sustainable livelihood, environmental stewardship, and human rights. And we have a vision where we want a world where communities are empowered to live dignified life. And you all agree with me that when communities are empowered, they are able to live dignified lives. In my first slide, you can see that we have school clubs where we are actually encouraging each and every child to be able to plant trees. And on the other photos, you can see some farmers and some community members where we are targeting that they have actually been able to grow trees. You can even see mango trees and some other trees actually surrounding their house. The arid areas in Kenya can be extremely hot. So when you see a home surrounded by trees like this, you can only imagine that their home becomes very cool. And the gentleman on my right has some mangoes and some fruits, and they can be able to have cool environment. Our thematic areas as an organization, we have integrated water resource management, we have inclusive education, we have resilience and disaster risk reduction. We also look at civil society development, where we grow in capacity of the groups, especially women groups. We have human intervention. We also have cross-cutting issues, especially things to do with FGM, which are very prevalent in Kenya. We've had a long-standing partnership with Solvatten, and we are grateful that we are part of using the innovation. The partnership goes back all the way from 2015. We had very few samples. If I remember, I think there were only 40 pieces. But by today, we are talking of over 11,000 pieces that have been distributed to different counties. We have targeted communities and also as well as the schools. And because we have a feeding program, we make sure that even the children that are going to school, after the hot meals, they are also able to take clean water, even as they also take it at home. Our communities are those that are very marginalized, very far from any town. There is no power, there's no electricity. So they actually, the sun is the source of energy. We also look at the elderly, the families with the children under 5, they are very vulnerable, and also people living with disabilities. Today we are talking over 6,000 households, and I can confirm that as of today, the distribution is still ongoing, because even this year we have received some containers. We are looking at the benefits of using Solvatten containers. We have reduced cases of stomach illness. We have data from the local health centers. We even have a report from one of the local health center, where the water was taken to government chemists, and they say that once it has changed from red to the green happy face Petra talked about, that is actually fit for human consumption. We also have improved hygiene through increased use of hot water, and especially when they wash their utensils, wash their hands, especially this era of COVID-19, they are actually able to, as the world is fighting COVID-19, the communities are able to wash their hands using warm water. Of course, we have reduced firewood consumption because they have hot water, so the food is cooked in a faster way. We've also had economic status, which you're going to see in my next slides, because they are saving money that they could have used to buy firewood. And then we have clean energy, where families do not have to inhale smoke so much because they are in the kitchen for a very short time because they have hot water. And of course, we have reduced deforestation, where we are letting the trees grow to increase the forest cover in Kenya. So to complement the Solvat, and as I talked about feeding of the children, you can see in this slide where we have this innovation, where this is clean energy cooking stove, where we are cooking for these children. So, and then they are able to take water from Solvat containers. And this energy saving stove, it's able to cook for 300 to 500 children. And the amount of firewood they use is very, very little. And when they get water, the arid areas in Kenya are the water is very rare. So this is one of the other dam that we've actually constructed. And this is where they get water, by the way, both for domestic and for irrigation. So when we started doing these water pans, they were very excited because they didn't have water, leave alone even getting for Solvat and even the availability of water. So this is a big earth dam, although we call them water pans. And when it rains, we are able to harvest a run of water. In my next slide, you can see that this bit, we've been able to put a liner such that the water does not seep down, but then the communities are able to farm, irrigate their land, come and learn as farmers, and also be able to draw the water, go and put it in the Solvat container. Once it is heated, it becomes fit for human consumption. Here you can see some ladies, they've actually gotten water with local jerrycan, and then they're able to put it in the Solvat container. And once they put it under the sun, they are able to, the water is heated and they are able to use it. And you can see we have been having trainings. There is a way that we put it so that it is facing the sun. And you can see the lady on this side has already put inside and has placed it to be able to be heated by the sun. And the way we distribute this innovation is that we use technology to distribute. So we are able to see how many we have distributed to which location, even the photos of the beneficiaries. So that's one of our community health volunteer registering communities as they receive their containers. And you can see happy community members, they have been able to receive their containers. And then because they are able to have now more time and now they have clean water and they are able even to irrigate their farms, one of the other things I would like to say is that when we harvest the run of water, it's more. So we are encouraging them also to be able to grow their crops so that the economic status can improve. And you can see because of irrigation, they are able to get high value crops once we harvest the run of water. There is no, of course, tapped water. So we only harvest the water that has been running once it rains. And I would like to say that because of the innovation that we've been using, different innovation, including Solvat, in 2021, out of 133 countries, IAS Kenya won the Global Development Award competition. We call it the most innovative project when it comes to climate-related disaster risk reduction in rural areas. And we won, we were actually #1, and we are proud of this award because of the work we are doing with the communities. So I add my presentation there. Thank you very much, Erica, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mary. Very inspirational session. Thank you so much. You can stop sharing your presentation also. Thank you. So from you mentioned fertile soils, which is a good connection to our next speakers. It's two people actually, Susan and Ariane, representing Terra Vitae. So welcome.
Good afternoon, all. Someone else have my presentation because I'm not so good with computers. So maybe, I'm not sure, I send it to Esmair, I think. I'm not sure if I pronounce it right.
Yeah, great. We can see it now. So.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, I have to apologize. Ariane cannot make it, but it's for a good cause. Tomorrow we fly to Abu Dhabi to meet up with the Saudi Arabian government because they are planning to plant billions of trees and they need good soil for that. So she has to prepare, has to do some preparations for that. But that's very good news because, yeah, these kind of projects can change like at one time a lot. First, I will tell a bit about what we do and I will share some test results. If you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So I met the family Nele about a year ago, and they are active in the agri and horticulture for 4 generations. So they have a lot of experience in all different climates with plants, soil, trees, everything. And they combined it and it led to one product. That's the golden mix. So that's the product we're talking about. And it's an answer to the most important problem the Earth faces at this point. So the CO2 problem, like food security, water. We believe that it all starts with a healthy soil. And like for many, many years, we took a lot of out of the soil. So we want to put it back. That's our focus for now. So I want to get a little bit more into the problems. So we experience desertification and erosion in many places. Of course, it has to do with the global warming, but also because of the traditional ways of doing farming for many, many years. So the usage of chemical fertilizers, they interrupt the symbiosis in which the ecosystem lives in. So when you use a fertilizer, a plant will take upon that and it just grows. It doesn't mean that there's any nutrients inside the plant, it just grows. But also normally it works together with the microlife in the soil. They through photosynthesis, they take upon CO2 and they pass it on to the microlife in the soil. They turn it into sugars for them, and the soil life gives the nutrients back to the plant. So the plant is full of minerals and vitamins. But because you use chemical fertilizers, the plant doesn't interact anymore with the microlife. So they don't get their fuel anymore, they will die, and then erosion starts to happen. So a lot of bad things happen because of the chemical fertilizers. Also, it becomes more acid, and a bad soil structure cannot hold on to water. So that's a problem. And the food, what we eat, we think in the West we have very nutritious food, but that's not true because it grows onto the main one to grow, but not to stay healthy. Because of the decrease in soil life and also because of the monoculture and mass production. So farmers who focus on producing one thing, you have a decrease in biodiversity, and that is also a problem in the whole, and it disrupts the ecosystem as well. And of course, a big problem is that the CO2 take upon minimizes because of this. Because normally plants and trees, they have like the working system with the soil, but if they don't pass it on, like if they don't need anything to pass on, the CO2 just stays in the atmosphere instead of being transformed to something good for the soil and to be transported to the ocean. So this was the depressing part. Now we go to the happy part. If we can go on to the next slide. This is the previous one. Yeah, so we believe that if you optimize the soil, you optimize the whole ecosystem. And the soil has like three main aspects: a physical, biological, and a chemical aspect. And yeah, that's those three aspects we focus upon with our golden mix. First, I will show you a few results and then dive into the golden mix. Yes, so here you see like after 3 months using our product, the soil. So on the left side, you see that the structure is like it's of a depleted soil is not optimal at all. And within 3 months, we got the soil structure to an optimal one. But in the table below, I don't think everyone can read it, but you see like the moisture retention capacity like improves enormously, but also the microlife and activity of the microlife. Can you go on to the next one, please? And not only the soil improves, here you see the difference in crops. So there's a difference in roots because you have thinner main roots because it costs less energy to stand. There's a lot of silicium in our product, and that makes the cell structure much firmer. So that's why it's much stronger, and even insects cannot like take a bite out of the leaf or something because it's much stronger. So chemical fertilizers or pesticides are needed as well. And you also see like it's much bigger and it has much more weight because there are more nutrients in it as well. If you can go to the next one, please. Thank you. This is the test we did with spraying the leaves, and it also the report came out like there wasn't taken any bite or like it wasn't damaged at all by insects. So it's the plant becomes much more resilient, and also like in the end last part you see that the fruit development it's much faster, and it also had much more weight. And now I'm thinking like first I had to start with the product because it's much more easy to understand when you first have seen the product, but that's for our next presentation. Finally, I come to the product. It's based on the physical, biological, and chemical part. And for the physical part, we used clay minerals, and for the biological part, microlife, and for the chemical part, we use rock dust. And the clay minerals are already a good basis. So it already has nutrients for the plants to grow on, also the water holding capacity. And the clay minerals are negatively charged, and the minerals that are food for the plants that grow upon that, they are positively charged. So that's why they can hold on to it, and they also have a structure that, like with a lot of corners, so they can easily hold on to the minerals. And that's what you need. Like a sand, like when you look at sand, it has a circle form, so everything just flush away from it, and that clay particles really hold onto all the positive things you need. Next slide, please.
All right, Susan, you have 1 minute left. Just a reminder.
Yes, that's perfect. I have 2 slides. So this is for the biological part. We use the microlife, and microlife makes the nutrients available. So by interacting with the plants, and they take upon the CO2 that we need out of the atmosphere and not in the atmosphere. So this is an accelerator of the sequestration process of CO2, but also a big important part to repair the ecosystem. One slide. The next slide, sorry. I was talking Dutch to you, like you couldn't understand it. And the last part is volcanic rock dust. It has like more than 60 minerals in it, and I already mentioned something about the 52% silicium. So this is what what makes a plant very, very strong. So no chemical or pesticides are needed. It's also SCOL certified, so you can use it for the biological organic farming. We use a rush product, so it's not like there's an extra CO2 emission because we want to use it. It binds ammonia. I already told a bit about it, but the quantity and the quality of the trees, plants, and crops increases. They're more resilient, so other protective instruments are not needed. I'll have to rush because of the minute. But I think this is the perfect ending. By feeding the soil, you heal the planet, and that's what we do. And so we're now talking with the Ministry of Saudi Arabia, but we're also talking with Shell, because farmers, they don't have the money to use this product themselves. So we're now looking for a way that polluters will finance it for the farmers with the carbon credit system. So that was it.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We are ready for the last keynote speaker, which is Katie Waschberger from Dana. The floor is yours, Dana. Oh, Katie.
Hi. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, perfectly.
I want to share my screen. Hold on. Okay. Okay. Cool. Everyone can see?
Yes, now we can see it.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna be pretty brief, and I just, in the very beginning of this really inspiring collection of stories and visions, there was some talk, I think, by Brennan about really the importance of investors. And in so many ways, the private sector is, the gears that move the wheels of how our society and how our economy functions. And my personal background, I came from academia, so I spent a lot of time researching what it takes to bring new ideas into our societies, especially in the Middle East. So I'm from Israel, and I've been living in the UAE for the past 6 years or so, on and off. I spent some time in Oman as well, and obviously in Palestine. And I've always been really curious about what needs to happen in order for a very large scale change to take place. And as an academic, I was constantly discouraged by the fact that I felt I couldn't do much besides for observe and document, when I was seeing so many of the solutions and so many of the problems right in front of my eyes, and I still felt kind of helpless in terms of, in the end of the day, Brennan mentioned we need courageous consumers and courageous investors and courageous individuals, but also corporate institutions to come and change the way that they do business and the way that they consume. So eventually I decided it wasn't really a decision. It kind of just happened. But I found myself in the private sector, and I found myself working with startups and with entrepreneurs who are trying to bring ideas specifically from academia, research, into the mainstream market and into the global economy. So today I am a co-founder of Dana. We are an Abu Dhabi-based venture builder for women-led startups in desert tech. So we work with the sectors of agri-tech, food tech, renewable energy, water solutions, and waste management. We're currently towards the end of our first, raising our first fund. So we're going to begin investing in the startups that are in our venture builder and making sure that they are not simply, being supported in terms of business development and in terms of go-to-market strategy and mentorship and business model construction, which is all very important for a venture builder, but also to put capital on the table. So I'll just scroll down. So, our vision is really to put women at the forefront of the change that we believe we can see in the region. There are a few reasons for this. I mean, so many of our presenters today were women, and I think it's not a coincidence that we see so many female founders and entrepreneurs really leading the way. I think that the way that our societies, specifically in these developing markets and in the Middle East, are constructed, and the way that we are brought up and educated, we learn as women that it's our job to look out not only for ourselves, but also for our communities and our families and our societies. So we find there to be a lot of female founders and entrepreneurs in our region who are doing work on food security, sustainability, resource management, agriculture. So our vision is to see the MENA region become interconnected and more sustainable, more accessible in terms of the economic opportunities through female leadership. We've been doing this project for 2 years now. We founded it in 2020, really at the height of COVID. I'll talk a little bit towards the end just about Dana, the woman who the project is named for. But since then, we've worked with over 7 companies, and we've really seen them grow from ideas or from small breakthroughs into full-fledged companies that can scale, can grow, and can change the consumer culture and the economies in which they operate. So we really focus on the acceleration process as a process of due diligence. So at the end of the day, a lot of these solutions, if they're not profitable and if they're not something that can be adopted and ultimately save resources and capital for large corporate institutions, they're always going to rely on either philanthropy or development finance. And it's really important for us to take these solutions and make sure that they are financially feasible and they can scale massively in the global market. So in order to do this, we have several different sort of streams of strategy trajectories. The first one is our acceleration program. So we work really hands-on with the founders, as I mentioned before, to be an entrepreneur and to bring a new idea into the market, as an individual and not as an R&D center or as a corporate entity. It takes a lot of stamina and fast learning, mentorship. So we really work hands-on with these women. We come on as temporary co-founders, and we really like to dive into all of the challenges of the business. At the same time, we also have our beta sites. So we have one experimental farm in the south of Israel, in Khateva, where we have greenhouses, net houses, outdoor fields, and packaging house. And we use this facility to do the proof of concept and the feasibility testing for the products, because oftentimes when it comes to agri-tech or food tech or solutions that are ultimately need to be adopted by a part of the economy that might not have as much access to innovation, such as farmers or logistics. It's very important to make sure that the product is viable, not only in terms of what it can do technologically, but also it's the way that the user is going to be able to implement it. So we work very closely with our farmers, with our packaging house, to make sure that whatever it is we're bringing into the market isn't going to be too expensive or too confusing for the people who need to use it. And then we engage very hands-on with the ecosystem of MENA, Middle East, North Africa. So we work with farming cooperatives, we work with corporate entities, universities, and of course, entrepreneurs, to make sure that the value chain is ultimately complete, so that the innovation coming from the startup companies isn't going to just stay in a lab, that it's going to come into contact with corporate design partnerships. We facilitate the pivots that are necessary, because actually one of my own mentors said something really interesting to me the other day. He was like, anyone in the agri-tech sector knows that the first time never works. So for us, embracing that reality and making sure that we can have everything in place for when you have that first unsuccessful trial or unsuccessful attempt, so that everything is really just ready to move and to get back on its feet and figure out how we learn from that failure and actually make something that's accessible and viable.
Sorry, Katie, your time is running up.
Okay, yeah. So I'll just run through, but ultimately, investment is the most important part, and I think that what Brennan brought up in the beginning really, really spoke to me. We have to make sure that that we're putting these technological solutions in a strategic place for the market. These are just some of our portfolio companies. Really proud of them. Why women? A lot of reasons for that, but they're the most educated population, part of the population in MENA. And they have 2.16x higher returns in startups that do not have a female founder. This was a study done by WAMDA, and we see it in our own cohort as well. And I'll just mention that our project, which I'm so proud to be a part of, is named for Dana Salah, who was an entrepreneur from Ramallah, who was tragically killed in 2020. So it's been really an honor to bring her legacy into fruition through this project. And I look forward to collaborating with some of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Katie. Okay, wow. Actually, we've been in this room now for 1 hour and a bit, and time is really flying because it's so interesting to listen to everyone. Before we move on to the Q&A session, I would just like to share this presentation of everyone's email address, so that I'll put it in the chat box as well, because at least what I take with me from what I listen to now is to ask myself, what can I do and what can we do together? So please do not hesitate when to contact us. All of the contact information is here. If you have any questions, or if you have already got some inspiration for collaborations or partnerships that you wish to move on with. So please, when we were preparing this session, we said that what is the next step actually? And we said that, well, we want to have more collaborations, more partnerships. That's the way forward. So please do not hesitate in contacting the people who have been presenting now. And of course, I really hope that you have some questions. You can raise your hand and I'll try to make sure that there's enough time to answer the questions. And if there's not enough time, you can always email afterwards. If you don't want to raise your hand, you can also write your question in the chat box. No questions so far? Okay, well then I actually have one question. Oh, there's one question. Okay, Richard Jordan, please.
Thank you very much. Richard Jordan from World Harmony Foundation. A question for the presenter from Kenya. Have you thought of partnering with someone like Tegla Larupe, who was the two-time winner of the New York City Women's Marathon? She's very well known. She represented the Refugee Committee at the closing ceremonies of the Tokyo Olympics. But these innovative partnerships might be a way to help promote what you're doing. Thank you.
Can I take it up, Erica?
Yes, Mary, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Richard, for your question. We have not, but I think it's a very good idea, looking for some of these celebrities. It's someone that I would like to give a thought of partnering with research. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So there's a Peter for Peter. There's a question in the chat. What about plastic waste in China as the world's largest producer? Have you initiated the plastic bank over there?
Thank you. Yeah, that is a good question. China is a huge country which has a lot of plastic pollution, also especially through the rivers. I think that we have not yet worked in China for mostly political reasons, that it was more difficult for us to set up our branches there, and I think that was the main reason why we have not been in China.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and ask my question. My question is for you, Brennan. In the beginning, you were talking about the need of encouraging investment. So my question is to you: how can we do that? What should we do in order to be able to encourage investors to be brave, like you said? What's your advice?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Wait, hold on. I've got a little.
Oh, Mary, can you turn off your microphone, please?
Okay, this is better. So, well, there are a number of things. One of them, I think, that is important is that we develop, which is something that we're trying to do at UNEP with this innovation facility. We're trying to pull in multiple partners that would work across an issue and for innovation around that issue, starting from the substantive people that work on, say, for example, let me just be really concrete. We're looking at wastewater treatment technologies that transform wastewater into fertilizer and energy, gray water for agricultural purposes. And there are innovations that, or these technologies that work at the very grassroots level that can be, implemented by villages all the way up to municipal level in Singapore. They're not brand new, but they're still quite new. So UNEP has the Global Program of Action on Land-Based Sources of Marine Pollution. Habitat has a Clean Cities Alliance. I mean, there's a number of different organizations that are working on the wastewater issue and nutrient overload and so on and so forth. And then there is a innovation scanning approach that we have in a network of partners, mostly academic institutions, but not solely, that are going to work with us to do that innovation scanning. So we're and we use a rather rigorous approach for the innovation scanning, identify really good, promising innovations that are not at that early demonstration stage, but really have been demonstrated but need to scale up, and use the platforms that exist in the Global Program of Action, the Habitat, other Sanitation Alliance, non-governmental organizations, faith-based organizations, to raise awareness around those innovations and potential solutions, and at the same time working with social impact investors to educate them, raise their awareness around the market-based opportunities that exist. And because oftentimes, and in this case in particular, return on investment is very long-term, there's that brings it to a higher risk. It makes it a less attractive investment. Also working with governments to ask them to buy down some of that risk, right? There's different ways that they can do that, but a blended finance approach, and working together with all of those different parties, generating sets of projects, interest in projects that can move forward and bring to the investors projects and marry those projects with development assistance financing, again, for bringing down the risk. So it's really setting up partnerships that work from point A to point Z, or maybe not really point A to point Z, point A up into the point where we've catalyzed other actors that can take it to point Z. So this is from UNEF's perspective, of course, because we have a mandate, we're more normative, we don't actually pull together the projects and make them, we're not building sanitation systems, that's not what we do. But getting to the point where the folks that do that are together and know people that are willing and ready to finance it, and getting the finance people to talk to the development people in governments to pull together financing packages that will work, et cetera. So really catalyzing that uptake of the innovation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sharing this slide again with all the email addresses. I also wrote the email addresses in the chat. So I hope that you all had time to write it down or take a photo with your phones or something like that. Sophia, I saw that you were raising your hand. Would you like to ask a question, or would you like to say something to finalize the meeting?
Oh, thank you. No, I see that Runa has a question in the chat. We have just 1 minute left, so we can answer her question.
Sure. Can you ask the question?
I think she was. Does UNEP have partnerships and investments for sustainable fashion?
I know we just have 2 minutes, but I was just wondering, but we can take this up later, no problem.
I was just typing a response to that in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, well, let's keep the time schedule. It's 1 minute left. It was a pleasure hosting this wonderful seminar. I'm very inspired. I really hope that you were too, and I hope that this session is going to lead to further collaborations and further innovative ideas for a greener and healthier world for everyone. So thank you so much, and let's stay in touch. Bye-bye.